Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. My guest today, Terje Søviknes, the Minister of Energy and Petroleum for Norway. Mr. Minister, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having you. So, obviously, Norway has been in the news thanks to President Trump. I'd like you to talk a little bit about Norway in terms of really facts people here in the United States don't know about the country. One of the things that fascinates me, given the prominence of Norway, is that it's a country of less than 5.5 million people. Which is, I mean, comparing the United States population of 335 million.
Yes, it's a rather small country, but when it comes to energy, we are quite a large exporter of both oil and gas, and we have a surplus of renewable energy as well due to hydropower. And lately, we have also have a lot of deployment of onshore wind. So we are exporting both renewables and oil and gas to Europe, and at the moment we are the 7th largest exporter of gas and the 14th largest exporter of oil. So we like to talk about ourselves as an energy nation.
You're an energy independent nation and an energy actually self-sufficient nation.
Yes, and that's been really important for the development of Norway. The industrial industry has grown from the hydro power in late 1990, and during the last 50 years we have a lot of oil and gas activities going on the Norwegian continental shelf. So it started by American companies, and during this period we have developed also a supply industry with cutting-edge technologies. So it's quite interesting to be a Minister for Petroleum and Energy. Is an important position in Norway.
So in that vein, I find it fascinating that, I mean, you look at, for example, hydropower in Norway. Provides something like, what, 95% of your electrical?
Yeah, 98% actually.
I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And when we see to the total energy mix in Norway, 70% is renewable. So we are quite different from rest of Europe.
Actually, you're different from the rest of the world.
Yeah, actually, but we like to compare us to Europe, our next neighbors, and they are struggling to have a renewable share of 20% in their energy mix. So it's quite different. But we have a good cooperation between Norway and rest of the Europe.
Given your hydropower resources, and I also want you to talk about wind energy, because Norway has moved into that arena as well. Could Norway provide power, much more power, to the rest of Europe?
Well, we export some power at the moment, and most of the hydropower is regulated so that we can produce when the windmills and the doesn't work in Europe, or the sun doesn't shine on the solar cells in the rest of Europe. So it's quite compatible with the renewable sector in the rest of Europe. So at the moment we have 2 new interconnectors, one between Norway and UK, and one between Norway and Germany. So that's to increase the capacity to exchange power. And when the wind's blowing in Europe and the sun's shining, we can import cheap electricity from the rest of Europe. So it's quite a nice position to be.
Are there plans to expand that pipeline, as it were, that energy pipeline, where you could do more for Europe, or going both ways?
You know, our gas pipeline infrastructure is well developed. Altogether, I think it's about 8,800 kilometers with pipelines between Norway and Europe, and we are a large exporter of natural gas. I think we provides about 25% of the EU consumption of natural gas, and gas is a really important energy source in the energy transition as well, because it can contribute to decarbonization, especially in the power sector, and of two reasons. First of all, it's a perfect partner for new intermittent renewables like wind and solar. And second, we can have the switch from coal to gas. And as you know, natural gas has 50% less greenhouse gas emissions than coal. So I think gas is the by far cheapest and fastest way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Europe.
So when it comes to, I mean, of course, one thinks in the energy arena for the last several decades of Norway. You think of the North Sea and production there, with the North Sea having been seen or predicted to be in decline, and its impact in terms of revenues on Norway. But there seems now to be a resurgence. So talk about what's happening in the North Sea, and also I'd be very interested in what's happening with your continental shelf exploration as well.
Well, the North Sea has been our most important part of the shelf since the late 1960s. And we have 50 years of production, both oil and gas. And recently we have seen a new interest also in the North Sea, and at the moment we have our largest new field development, Johan Sverdrup. It's 4 offshore platforms, and it's a really great project with a break-even price at well below $15 per barrel.
15.
15.
1-5.
1-5.
That's
and that's perfect both for the oil and gas companies and for the state's revenues. So and lately we have had new licensing rounds in the most mature area of Norwegian continental shelf, and we saw a record high interest. 39 companies were applying in the latest round, and in January I offered 75 new licenses. That's a new record in our 50 year of oil and gas history in Norway. So
what's happening? What's happening is the technology has advanced, and looking at fields that in the past appeared to be depleted, now with new technology, companies can go back in, and there's much more oil to be had.
Yes, the discovery of the Johan Sverdrup field is a good example of that. It was an abandoned area. Nobody thought there would be any resources, and then new companies with new eyes come in, and they did this large discovery. So new exploration activities are going on in the North Sea also in the years to come.
All right, well, Norwegians are very fortunate. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with the Norwegian minister in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today.
The Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbortv.com.
Welcome back. I'm with Norway's Minister of Petroleum and Energy. So tell me about what does the state, what does the country get in terms of royalties from when you have production in the North Sea, for example, on your continental shelf? What kind of revenue does that bring in? What kind of royalty percentage does Norway get?
Well, we offer the licenses for free, but we take a large amount of the revenue from discoveries. 78% of the revenue from the oil and gas sector is coming to the state. So it means a lot for our welfare society and given us a great income over the last decades. So we have built up this sovereign wealth fund with approximately $1,000 billion US dollar.
So the sovereign fund is over $1 trillion, over $1,000 billion.
$1,000 billion.
That's $1 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
For 5 million people.
Yeah, it's about 200,000 $200,000 US dollar per capita.
Yeah,
so it's quite a lot of money. But we are not using all of it. We are just using maximum 3% of the revenue from the fund. Annual. So
that's absolutely extraordinary. Of course, with that kind of royalty, 78%, if you're producing hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars of revenue, as a company, you're still making money.
Yeah, and we see that the interest is high from the oil and gas companies, and I think it's due to our three main pillars in the Norwegian oil and gas policy. First of all, we have always been positive to long-term, stable, predictable framework conditions for the industry. This is a capital-intensive industry, and they have to know what they are going to face the years coming up.
Right.
Second, offer a high volume of new prospective exploration acreage. That's always welcome in the industry. And third, we have a focus on R&D. Our technology has to be on cutting-edge technologies, and we have built up a world-class supply industry during the last decades. So at the moment, approximately 200,000 people work directly or indirectly in the oil and gas industry in Norway. And that's quite a large share of the population.
That's extraordinary. So having that expertise right there in the country, providing the economic opportunity with large amounts of acreage and potential for recovery, and then, as you said, having the regulatory stability so a company can make an investment with the confidence that the rules aren't going to change in 5 years or 10 years or 30 years.
Yes, it has been stable over decades, and even when we have different governments with different parties, there's a broad majority in the parliament that use their efforts to make this stable in the long term. So even if we change government, there will not be any change in the framework conditions for the industry.
So Norway is also known for its environmental sensitivity, for its environmental regulation. Talk a little bit about that, how the country uses environmental regulation to protect the country, but also in the context you talked about, having those regulations in place already so that companies know that are exploring or drilling, they already know what they have to do.
Yes, it's important for us to produce oil and gas in a proper and a sustainable manner. And we have, of course, discussions about this, but we always take care of the environmental issues, the fisheries, the bird life, and of course, we are extremely focused on safety when it comes to oil and gas production offshore. It's really important, and especially now when we are moving further north to our northernmost region, the Barents Sea, where we have, it's actually in the Arctics, but the Arctics in Norway aren't the same as the Arctics in US, Canada or Russia, because due to the Gulf Stream, we have, which warms up the water along the Norwegian coast, we have quite similar production conditions in the Barents Sea as we have further south in the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea. So also in the Arctic, we are producing oil and gas in a safe and proper manner. And at the moment, we have 2 producing fields in the Barents Sea. One LNG field, Snøhvit, Snow White, and we have one oil field, Goliath. And a new one is coming up. Johan Castberg field is now developing, and it's a new great oil field with a quite low break-even price as well.
So what's the long-term forecast for that area? I assume there's going to be much more exploration.
Yes.
And also, what's the impact of climate change as you go north?
Well, as I said, the conditions in the Arctic in Norway is quite different from the Arctic elsewhere in the world. So we are focusing, of course, on safety and environmental issues also in the Barents. But for the next years, there will be a lot of exploration activities. Last year, we had a lot of exploration wells drilled in the area. Badly with not so good results, but we are continuing on this summer, and especially when it comes to our reserves, the estimates says that we have produced about half of the Norwegian oil and gas resources after 50 years with oil and gas production in Norway. And when it comes to the second half, which remain to produce, about 65% of it is in the Barents Sea.
So obviously your emphasis will be shifting over time.
Yes, it will. But still there is a lot of resources also further south in the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea. So especially when it comes to natural gas, it's exciting development projects further south, because that's connected with the pipelines to Europe.
Well, and certainly as technology advances, you may find that your reserves end up where you thought you were running out, that they're growing
well,
again.
We have seen that over the last decades. The estimates have always been rising. So, and new technologies, EOR, and of course the digitalization, which is the new buzzword over all buzzwords, also in the oil and gas industry. It gives us new opportunities for the future.
All right, we're going to take our last break, and we'll be back with the Minister of Petroleum and Energy in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
The Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbortv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
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 I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch The Aaron Harber Show and keep hope alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbortv.com.
Welcome back to the show. We're with the Minister of Petroleum and Energy for Norway. So tell me a little bit, really Norway is so, I think, advanced in terms of its use and the percentage of energy produced by renewables, especially, as we mentioned, hydropower. Tell me about what the country's doing in terms of wind energy.
Yes, we have a lot of resources onshore for wind, and during the latest years we have seen a lot of new development projects coming up with onshore wind. And of course, onshore wind has a lower cost than offshore wind, so when we have the resources onshore, we are going to use them. But we are also working with offshore wind, and our oil and gas company Statoil, who is now more energy company, have decided to invest heavily also in renewables, and they are developing a new project with floating offshore windmills called Hywind. And that's a very interesting project. At the moment, there is a new demonstration park outside Scotland, Aberdeen, and it's quite exciting to follow that project, because if we can lower the costs on floating windmills as well, it opens a lot of new opportunities worldwide for offshore wind. Then you don't need these shallow waters for having a production of clean, renewable energy from the wind resources.
And you don't have the cost of anchoring them.
We use our experience from and our competence from the oil and gas sector, or offshore oil and gas production, and of course with a strong maritime sector as we have in Norway, and this competence from the oil and gas sector, it's useful to use that competence also in a new sector like offshore wind.
Let's talk about carbon capture and sequestration. Certainly you've had some advanced projects in that arena. Talk a little bit about what the country has done.
Yes, everybody agrees that if we are going to reach the goals in the Paris Agreement, we need carbon capture and storage, or carbon capture, utilization and storage. And in Norway we work through the whole value chain from R&D. We have the world's largest test facility at the Technology Center Mongstad on the western coast of Norway for CO2 capture. And at the moment we are working on a very a new exciting project, a full-scale demonstration project where we have CO2 capturing from industrial plants, not only from the power sector, and we are focusing on cement, ammonia, and a waste incineration plant. They don't have any other options. CO2 emissions are a part of their processes. So we are going to capture, at least what we hope, from one or three of these these plants, then transporting CO2 by ship to the western coast of Norway, and from there by pipelines out in the North Sea, and storage it below seabed in old oil and gas reservoirs. So this is a project being developed now, and hopefully we'll be able to realize it during the next years. But it's costly at the moment, but someone has to go in front, and it might as well be Norway.
So is there any possible use of the carbon, especially in the oil and gas industry?
Well, in Norway we have used water injection so far, but perhaps there will be some possibilities also for CO2 injection, and that's normal in other parts of the world. But I think the most important issue for Norway is that if we are going to have these storage facilities in the North Sea, it will have a higher capacity than just storing the CO2 from our industrial plants. So perhaps it could be a hub for CO2 storage for the rest of the Europe as well. So it might be new business opportunities for the decades to come.
Especially for Norway, it
yeah,
sounds
of
like.
course, but it's an important issue if we are going to reach the goals in the Paris Agreement and lower the greenhouse gas emissions. We need carbon capture and storage in the future.
So what have, in terms of leadership, what kind of relationship do you have with other Scandinavian countries, European countries? Because certainly Norway, for a lot of different reasons, seems to have been ahead of the game than many other countries. And tell me about those relationships.
Of course, of course we cooperate with our neighbors in the Nordic region. We have united electricity market. I've had it since 1990s. That's have been serving us well. And of course we are cooperating with the rest of Europe, the EU, especially when it comes to interconnectors for electricity and natural gas. But I will also like to underline the cooperation between Norway and US when it comes to the energy field, because we have a long time relationship as allies, and when it comes to energy, new technology developments, CCS, and recently I've had a meeting also with Secretary Ryan Sinke, and we discussed cooperation when it comes to offshore wind, a new memorandum of understanding between our two countries to share best practice and new technologies when it comes to offshore wind. So the relationship between the US and Norway are strong and will be strong also in the future.
I know, except that our president doesn't understand why Norwegians aren't flocking to the United States. So I
think there are a lot of Norwegian in the US.
That's
and
true.
Just here in Houston, I think there's 5,000-6,000 Norwegians. Most of them are working within the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, there are many more in the northern part of the United States where the climate is more similar. Mr. Minister, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. That was the Minister of Petroleum and Energy. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.